Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Clergy Check-in for Monday, August 3rd. In this week's Torah portion of Eikev, Moses continues instructing the Israelites what they should be doing when they enter the land, how they are to be faithful to God's commandments in order to receive all of God's blessing. He also does a reverse in terms of looking backwards at the history that followed the Israelites out of Egypt, and he lands on what happens at Mount Sinai in terms of not only receiving the law, but in terms of what happens when he comes down with the tablets of stone and how he breaks them because of their disobedience. He then says that God then instructs him to copy and to take down the exact same set of commandments a second time. What's interesting is if we look in the original source of that second set of 10 commandments, which occurs in Exodus 34, that with the exception of Shabbat and not worshiping other gods, the second set of 10 commandments was very, very different from the 10 commandments that we see in Exodus 20 and that we read to a pretty much similar extent last week in Parashat V'etchanan. What the second set of 10 commandments in Exodus 34 reveals is a tension that exists within Judaism between that which is universal and that which is particular. Are the Israelites a particular nation, or should they embrace a universalistic understanding of God and the world in which they live? The first set of 10 commandments that we see, the ones that we know, have some particular components to it, like Shabbat, like worshiping the God that brought them out of Egypt, but then the other items of honoring mother and father, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to kill, not to covet, not to bear false witness, are what we would call universal themes that other nations may have embraced. When we get to Exodus 34, again, aside from the Shabbat and the worshiping of other idols, there is a very particularistic detailing of how the Israelites were to observe the various festivals of Pesach and Sukkot, and how they were to be committed as a religious entity to that God of Israel. And so that tension seems to persist even into daily times. How much of our religion do we practice? How particularistic do we want to be? In the early Reform movement, the rabbis of that time wanted to be able to blend into the general communities of Western Europe and not to seem too Jewish. And yet we find ourselves at times also celebrating that unique quality and the particularistic nature of our tradition. And so that struggle continues even into the modern time. Just one last note. The last commandment, if you will, of that second set of Exodus 34 is do not boil a kid in its mother's milk, which becomes eventually for the rabbis for the foundation of modern day kashrut. Have a great day.